Hi everyone, I'm Miranda. I use they, them, those pronouns, and I'm the LGBTQ Women's Program Officer at the New Haven Pride Center. I'm really excited to welcome you all in to round 2 of LGBTQ Women in Politics, a panel discussion series that centers queer and trans women from across Connecticut and our country from a variety of different roles in the political realm so that we can get to hear their experiences and further advocate for increased representation of queer and trans women's experiences in politics. Before we begin our panel and introducing our panelists, I just want to make a friendly reminder that we want this to be an interactive discussion. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment below on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, so forth. I'll be your moderator and I'll be able to read and introduce those questions. We also want this to be an opportunity to network and to engage and get to meet our panelists and get to know them better. So going forward, if you want to get in touch with any of our lovely panelists, please just shoot me an email, women@newhavenpridecenter.org, or if you have any other concerns, interest in women's programming at the Pride Center, so on and so forth, definitely feel free to send me an email, women@newhavenpridecenter.org. I'm super happy to connect with you and to connect you to any of our fabulous participants in this discussion. So first and foremost, I'd like to introduce Sarah Locke, and I'll read her bio real quick. Sarah is a campaign professional born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. Sarah brings a decade of experience in community organizing, volunteer activism, and fundraising on behalf of such organizations as Planned Parenthood of Southern New England, New Haven Rising, New Haven Working Families Party, New Haven Democratic Town Committee, the Immigrant Bail Fund, CT Equality, and Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services. Currently, Sarah proudly serves as Congresswoman DeLauro's campaign manager. Locally, Sarah continues to serve as commissioner on the Board of Zoning Appeals and as co-chair of the New Haven Democratic Town Committee. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Next, we have Shobhan Eka. Shobhan is a rising senior at Jonathan Law High School and the Educational Center for the Arts. She began working with Justin Farmer's campaign for state senate this summer, using visual art to represent Justin's platforms. She's also working with other activists in her town to effect policy change regarding police accountability and funding. Shobhan plans to go to art school and continue to use art to fight for racial justice. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
And next we have Mia Lozada. Mia is a 25-year-old transgender Puerto Rican activist. She filed to run for the Connecticut House of Representatives in the spring. A first-time candidate, she serves on the city's commission on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues, and would have become the first openly transgender member of the state General Assembly. While she had to exit the race, we're incredibly grateful that she ran and did her part in paving the way for others. Thank you so much, Mia.
Thank you.
All right, so before we continue, I'm going to give you a moment to introduce yourselves and tell us something that you want our audience and our participants to know about you that perhaps I wasn't able to capture. So we'll begin in order. Let's begin with Sarah.
Thank you, Miranda and the Pride Center, for having me here today. It's really a great opportunity, and I hope we can connect with a lot of people. Yeah, I was born and raised in New Haven. I got into politics very late in life. I was 34 the first time I knocked doors. And, it was a pretty short leap to end up working for a congresswoman that I believe in. So I guess what I would say to everyone out there is it's not too late, and you can definitely do whatever you want to do and represent the people you want representing you.
Awesome. Shobhan?
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much to the New Haven Pride Center. This is amazing. So yeah, I'm 17. I was born in Maryland and then moved to Milford, Connecticut when I was 7. So coming from a majority Black and brown neighborhood and then ending up in Connecticut in Milford, which is like about 94% white, has really informed a lot of my experience and like my political inclinations. And this summer I was so excited to be working with Justin for a candidate that I believe in and that I think really well represents not only the LGBTQ plus community, but also the Black community and the POC community in Connecticut. And he's really inspired me to want to run myself someday.
Right, and Mia.
Mia Lozada here. Again, born and raised in Hartford, basically been in Hartford my entire life. I love the city. Um, Basically, I never imagined myself being in this position to run for state rep or, formally run for state rep. I never was a big fan of government. I always thought, the government doesn't care about us. And I didn't really understand when I was growing up in Hartford what it meant to be a brown Latina. I don't see color as a thing when I was growing up. I'm like, wait, why is this person treating this person this way? And then like having privileges and everything else coming in. So I took that in consideration. Okay, I'm learning. So step by step, when I graduated high school and just getting into my adult life, I started to discover myself where I came out as trans openly in 2015. I told my grandmother, like, hey, I just can't continue to live a lie. So I'm going to take the medication that's going to help me feel better in the skin that I am in. And so going on forward, then the passion for government, being an elected official to serve and protect the people, became a thing for me. I feel like it's my responsibility to speak up for my community members, especially being in the 3rd district in Hartford. It's Park Street, Broad Street, Falk Hollow, all the above. It's just there's not a lot of representation and people are afraid. People are afraid to speak up because a certain state rep decides to ignore their own constituents when that person voted for that person, right? Mm-hmm. So my inspiration was that I haven't seen any trans people like me, brown, who ran for government. So I said, you know what? I am going to do this. One, because I am choosing my bravery. Second of all, I'm not choosing my trans identity as an excuse to get people to vote for me. I'm using it for people, for future children to see, wow, she did it, I can do it too. Because at the end of the day, we need to have more people, more diversity in government. So I was very proud that I ran for state rep, and I'm very proud that I left a mark, and I hope I'm not the last, but this isn't the last campaign that I'm gonna, basically do. But yeah, basically my calling is to help my community members, and I refuse to leave this universe unless I make a handprint into this world that, at least I made a difference for the children and for everyone else to live a normal life,
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. That actually transitions really perfectly into our first question, which was, how did you get your start in politics? And what were some of those initial challenges that you faced? So I'll begin with Mia, since you were sort of on that topic, and then we can kind of work our way backwards to Sarah.
Yeah. So even getting in the habit of attending city council meetings and listening to other people's concerns or their pitch of bringing an idea for city council members to, work on, I thought, wow, this is very interesting. People really do come together. Because I thought, folks who have concerns or complaints, they wouldn't really come up to the plate where they can actually say, hey, I need help. Because people are afraid to ask for help. And that's something that we all have to remind ourselves that, yes, it can get scary, but we can't really live in that fear. We have to move forward to ask for that help. And so I kept going and I kept going. And then I heard about this person who has served at the Capitol for 22 years, the person I was challenging. I've learned all of her track history, what she voted against, what she voted for, all of the progress she's done within the years. Even my own grandfather, said that, oh, that woman, you're not trying to, bash anybody, but that tells me that if people continue to talk about there hasn't been any change and it's been 22 years, there's no excuse. So I had to step in and just sign up. I signed up in 2019. So I was very secretly telling people I was running for office so that my name and my face can get known, so that when 2020 comes, oh, I know her. I spoke to her last year about, this and that. I decided to step up because I was fed up. Even Barack Obama said, if you're upset with your elected officials, grab a clipboard and run for office yourself. And that's exactly what I did. So that's what inspired me. That quote carries in my mind till this day. And I will continue to run for office until I get to that place of helping people. So.
We'd love to hear it. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Siobhan, so what gave you your start? You're 17 and very sort of, fresh into this field. So what gave you that push?
I mean, well, first of all, just thank you so much, Mia, for even running. I feel like people just need to see that so much. Like, it's so important. And like, I'm so glad that you're going to continue to run. Definitely will be supporting you in the future. And I think a lot of people on this live stream will. And I mean, that is part of like what gave me my start, is like realizing that there are candidates out there that I could be proud of, because I feel like for a long time, it almost felt like politics were just kind of irrelevant to me, because it was like, no matter what happens, it's always just going to be a bunch of like straight cis white men in office. And it's like, you have to just pick the best one. But now I'm kind of realizing, oh, there are candidates who want to make real change. And there are candidates who really do want to represent people like me. I'm not totally irrelevant to the political spectrum. There are people out there who align with my values, who I can proudly kind of throw my weight behind. And like you said, Mia, if there aren't those people, be that person. And being 17 is like next year I'm going to be 18 and I can start doing whatever I want. I can run for office if I want to. And it's kind of exciting to realize like, oh, if things are happening in a way that you don't appreciate, if things are happening in a way that don't represent your values, you can make a change. And just sitting around and feeling hopeless about it doesn't do anybody any good. So it's best to, find the person that really represents what you're looking to push in your own town, in your own state, and then throw all your weight behind them and get everybody else on board. Because otherwise, it's going to continue to go the way it's always gone. And part of that weight is going to be on you for not doing anything about it. So that's kind of what got me into it this year.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so exciting to see like the bright futures that are ahead of everyone in this room, or on this live stream. It's not a room. Social distancing. Amazing. Thank you for that. And Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm just humbled to be on this panel with the two of you in so many ways. You're just so inspiring. And I think that, you don't know what it looks like to see like powerful queer women in government until you see powerful queer women in government. So I'm just excited that you both are or will run for office, and I want to help. I got involved late. I was 34. I started door knocking, not for a candidate, but for a city. I was door knocking in New Haven with a local group that was asking different, areas, different questions, different words, different blocks. Like, essentially the question was like, where does it hurt, right? Like, what's wrong? And then mapping that out and looking at the whole city and sort of understanding where different problems were in different areas. And you have people half a mile apart with such different problems that really, I think, stems from, the way that New Haven is segregated by race and class and education. And then I was just all in. I just wanted to keep door knocking for anyone or anything that I thought would help, sort of push agendas that I think are really important and so often are not on the table. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. So you all have very different roles within the political realm, from campaign management and fundraising to graphic design and art activism to running for office as a candidate. What inspired you to take up these unique roles? How did you find those particular fits within this type of work that you're doing? I'll start with Sarah, and then we can work our way to Mia.
I think that I originally came into it wanting to run for office, and I asked some politicians I knew for advice and kept hearing sort of this theme of, you're gonna, pardon my French, like eat shit every day, and nobody's really gonna thank you. Sorry.
It's fair. No, you can swear on the live stream. We don't care.
Okay, great. That the good ones at least are trying to do a lot of good for a lot of people, and mostly just kind of hearing what they're not doing for people. And so I made a decision that I wasn't going to run myself, but that I really wanted to like lift up the people that I thought would do more good for more people, and kind of help redefine the laws and like the resources and the definitions of family that just like weren't built for me or people like me. And I just thought like there's I think you need to be on the inside and the outside to change that. Like, I think we need people to run and change the system. And I also really believe that we need agitators on the outside to keep pushing those people to keep their promises once they get elected. And so I just kind of came to my role as, wanting to start elevating people that I thought, would lift up those like platforms for women and queer folk and people that I don't think were being fairly represented.
Amazing. Yeah. Also, and Siobhan, your graphic designs have really taken off and gained a lot of social media popularity in Justice campaign. So why did you decide to use art as your kind of vehicle for political engagement?
Well, I just kind of wanted to use what I already was doing just for something that was important to me because, in my free time, I'm always doing art. Like if I have time to spare, I'm always doing art. And I was like, how can I use this to actually engage with my community and actually affect change in my community? And then this opportunity came along to use my art to uplift a campaign that I was excited about. And it just seemed like a perfect fit for me because I was like, I'm going to be doing this anyway. I'm already going to be drawing. I'm already going to be painting. Why don't I use that to like spread the word to other people? And one of the really exciting things about art and politics, I think, is that even people who disagree with you can see art and feel like whatever emotion is behind that art. And that's really important because like the best way to connect with people who don't agree with you, I think, is on an emotional level. Because, if you use buzzwords or like facts or things that they've already heard and they already know they disagree on, it's really hard to break down that barrier. But if you reach them on an emotional level that says, oh, we both feel the same thing about this same issue, that's a way that you can bring them in where you might not have been able to otherwise. So yeah, that's why I wanted to use art to uplift the campaign, because I feel like you can reach a lot of people that way that maybe you can't reach them over the phone or in person or whatever. Or like if you can't actually get them to come to your events, you can kind of come to them via social media and get them thinking the way that you think.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant answer. And Mia, so you've talked about, why did you decide that it was your time to run for office as opposed to, sort of like taking those baby steps? There's this concept of, oftentimes women, especially more marginalized women, feel the need to have like permission to run or be told to run. So what prompted you to just dive right in?
So really what inspired me was AOC. She is a congresswoman I stand by to this day and will continue to support her until whenever she wants to retire. I mean, her being unapologetically calling people out is something I'm a big fan of, because a lot of politicians these days like to sugarcoat and cover up people. And that's a shame. And I saw that myself and I said, oh my God, this is what people are voting for. We exercise our right to vote, but we really have to vote people like in that will do the work, not just doing it for the check, which people fail to forget where they came from when they are established. So my time of running for office, my goal was to run in 2020, and I did that. And I felt like it was my calling to run because I was tired. I feel like I can't literally like walk down the street feeling like, oh, is someone going to harass me because they think that I am a man or a woman? Or continuing seeing children like complaining about schools don't, care about them, or the teachers don't care about them because they can't relate where they come from, because they can, have traumatic household experiences. I've gone through it myself, but, I learned how to get out of it because, again, some educators didn't understand where I was coming from and why I had an attitude or why I act a certain way. And I was just dying to tell people, like, I'm running for office because I am sick and tired of seeing my district rot, to continue to rot. You know how many people tell me, oh, I'm scared to walk up Park Street or to drive up Park Street because I don't want my car to get shut up. You know how painful it is to hear those kind of words when I live in this district? Yeah, my neighborhood isn't perfect, but we can make that, we can change that to really creating our community from going, and then to, repairing it to where it needs to be. I'm just tired of seeing people die from opioid overdoses that people choose. Okay, like we have to understand that why people choose drugs because they kind of have a traumatic experience, or they just, you know, feel like people don't care for them. So the point of what I'm trying to say is this was my time to run because I refuse to see the incumbent continue to win when she's not doing nothing for her constituents and continues to not do anything for her community. So that's why I ran, and I really am proud that I ran. But again, this is not the last, so I really am motivated to continue moving forward.
Best of luck in that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you all have such inspiring and really interesting and unique stories here. But there's some common themes that I think are emerging, of the sense of, you know, trying to find yourself and take over a system that wasn't really meant to represent people like us. So the next part is more of a two-part question. You know, trying to get in, you know, your personal experiences of, you know, politics and campaigns and campaign work, which is day to day. What are some of those challenges that you experience, especially as a queer woman in politics? But I also wanted to talk about, you know, on the flip side, you know, what are some of those joys and those uplifting moments, and what keeps you going? You know, I don't want this to be centered just around the trauma, but also what, you know, how we overcome that and how we find, you know, motivation to press forward and to continue doing the work that we do. So I'll begin with Siobhan on this one. So yeah, thinking, you know, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced, and how do you keep going?
So I mean, in the past couple months or so, I've been doing a lot of like protesting and like organizing protests and all that kind of stuff, which, you know, is in the realm of kind of trying to affect policy change. And I feel like one of the major challenges of being a woman in that space is like being constantly interrupted. Like, I feel like a lot of women can relate to that. It's just like, nobody wants to let you talk until you're finished. Everyone wants to cut you off, specifically men. And it's just like kind of this culture of like not feeling like women have anything important to say, or even if they do, feeling like they have something more important to say than you. But on the flip side of that, talking about what's like, you know, the joy of doing that kind of work is like being able to create my own spaces, which is why I love like organizing my own protests and stuff, because then I can create my own space, not only for my own voice, but for other, you know, young Black queer women voices, for voices that might be kind of snuffed out otherwise, being able to create that space where they can actually uplift the ideas that they feel need to be heard. Where maybe they couldn't do that in another setting, or where they wouldn't have been given a platform at a different event. So yeah, I mean, being interrupted is like not a big deal when it happens once, but it's like if every time you talk, somebody interrupts you, after a while, it makes you want to stop talking, which is why I just love it when I see women running for office. Cause I know when I see a woman running for office, like she has been interrupted over and over again in her life. And she's like, nope, not anymore. Like, we're getting into office and we're going to do this, which I just think is so amazing. Like the resilience of women, and queer women, especially, in that sense, that it's like, you know, the world has over and over again told you, no, your voice doesn't matter, you don't get to talk. But like, if you decide you're going to talk anyway, that's where change starts to happen. So yeah, that's been the best part of this last 2 months, I think, is like hearing so many new voices that I haven't heard before, that have just pressed through and decided this is their time.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think we all kind of, I could tell from the looks on our faces, we're like, yep, getting interrupted all the time. That's a day of life. All right, Mia, do you have any sort of like thoughts on those challenges and how you overcome them?
Yeah. So when the Hartford Current published the article that I was running against the incumbent, I was very nervous because just people's comments, you know, people can be so cruel. I've read one comment that still sticks to me, but I overcame it, where a person said, well, I guess she's running as a woman because she couldn't be a man in the field of running for office. So that's why she's running as a woman. And I thought to myself, wow, people are really, really, really cruel, but I overcame because I was hoping to really defeat this person and be the first young trans state rep, but again, it's not the last. But I chose those comments and also the challenges that was happening in my campaign that people started to support, people started pouring, donations started to pour in, people talking to me here and there. That made me continue to have the faith and hope to move forward. But yeah, to overcome all those mean comments, I literally thank them because you're giving me the motivation to love myself more, because I refuse to go back in the closet when I came out the closet years ago. So why am I going to go back just by one simple or many simple comments because I don't have the experience, that I didn't go to school for law, that I'm a Puerto Rican trans woman, that I don't have what it takes to go for it? Well, thank you. Look where I'm at now on this beautiful panel.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Amazing. I just really appreciate the sense of like confidence that you exude and that tremendous sense of strength. Thank you so much. All right, and Sarah, this is something that you and I have talked vented to each other about personally, but giving you the platform to kind of open up here. So, what keeps you going those times?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just say like interruption happens constantly, and I'm not sure it ends when you get elected, but hopefully there's less of it. And being underestimated, as a woman or as a queer woman happens often. People taking credit for things that you might have sort of done or thought of. So I think those are like some of the things that like what we talked about are very frustrating about, who we are in this system. But what gets me excited is what's happening now. I mean, the protests and the movements that are happening now and the youth that's involved is, beyond inspiring to me. And, I think when I was that age, I kind of was like, oh, I don't pay attention to politics. And, you can not pay attention to politics, but politics is paying attention to you. So it's really inspiring to just see people that understand that now, and especially like it's being led by the youth, and that that no matter what you do, like politics is paying attention to you. It is governing, your body even, and it shouldn't, but it is. And so that we have to really like change the people who make that system in order to change that system. And I know we have a lot of setbacks and myriad problems, but I feel like with every election, that happens more and more, and that's what wakes me up in the morning when I don't want to do this some days.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that since starting this series of panel discussions and the work that I get to do with the Pride Center, it's been really uplifting just getting to meet so many amazing women like yourselves, and as horrifying as the news can be, and 2020 is the worst year, although things have been bad for a lot of people for a long time, and our problems aren't going to go away once the clock strikes 12 on the new year. But being able to know all of you and meet all of you and engage with you is definitely something that keeps me going as well. And I just feel so lucky to be up here with you. Awesome. So next part is we're getting into some little more political theory types of discussion. But our political systems, as we've all acknowledged, aren't really designed to represent people like us. There's so much to be discussed around the idea of taking over and seeking representation within the system that was built for wealthy white men who are cisgender, who are primarily heterosexual, primarily wealthy. And we've achieved, on the page, a technical equal right to vote for everyone, but with massive incarceration and with voter restrictions, it's allowed to say that all of us have an equal opportunity to vote, let alone work on a campaign or run for office. So in terms of, questions on this topic is, first off, why take on this work at all? why, keep going when this is such a challenging moment to be in? And what do you feel we need to change in order to achieve a system that actually works for all of us? What's the change that you want to see, not just in terms of representation, but in terms of, our government and how it works for us? And with that, I'll just leave it to whoever wants to go first. If these questions speak to anyone. Raise your hand. I don't know. Okay, sorry. Awesome.
I mean, I think in terms of like the sort of why do it and what changes we want to see, I feel like women and queer women and people of color are really crushed by the system and the patriarchal system and capitalism, really, that we bear the economic weight of the country, and that we largely are in charge of all the unpaid labor. And then we bear the heaviest burden when things aren't going well, as we've seen, very clearly from the past 6 months. What happens when the economy collapses is that we're at the bottom of that. So just to your question of, I forgot the first few questions, but of why do this? Well, because that's not fair, and we have to change that.
Absolutely. All right. Siobhan, do you want to?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. I mean, that's a really interesting question. I was just thinking about it because, like, I think about that a lot, like, because it does seem kind of futile sometimes to like run for office and then feel like things are still not going to change, or like that the change that needs to happen is so massive that it couldn't be done by one person. But at the same time, I feel like the reason why people still should do it, why like young people and women and queer people especially should be running for office, is because I mean, harm reduction seems like a very trivial way to put it, but it's more like, how can you affect people's day-to-day lives positively right now? Because it's like, in an ideal world, we would have a revolution and then we would break down the patriarchy and white supremacy and all these things, but it's like, that has not happened yet. So we're going to work within the system to reduce the harm that happens to people on a daily basis. We're going to use the system to ensure housing for trans people, to ensure that queer people aren't discriminated against because of their sexuality, or, to reduce funding to police so that communities have more money for education or whatever it is. It's like, maybe we can't tackle everything all at once, but if you get into office and you're able to, or if you're able to support someone who's going to get into office and create change, I feel like the reason why we do that is just to affect people's lives on a basic level from day to day, protect them from the harm that comes from this system of, capitalism and oppression and all that. Even if you can't like destroy the system from the inside, you can reduce the harm that comes from that system, which is what's really become important to me recently, is just, seeing the suffering that people go through every single day in their lives because of these systems, and that if there's no one in their government specifically there to protect them from those things, it just will get worse and worse. So even if you are like, a radical revolutionary or whatever, you can still run for office. Even if you hate the government, you can still run for office because there are people like literally suffering right now in your community because there's no one there who cares about them or wants to represent them. So if you're going to be that person, the reason why you should do that is just to help those people on a basic level.
Absolutely. Awesome. That was really well-formulated answer from both of you. Thank you. All right. And Mia, I wanted to give you one if you had anything to add on that too. Yeah.
I'm basically, what I would always remind people is that whenever we vote or whenever we get to that position, we have to remind ourselves that these elected officials that keep winning, whether they do or do not do the work, they have our lives on the line, and we have to continue to remind ourselves of that, because if someone basically was accused of a crime that they didn't commit, our job is to really defend that person, and we need to have like a state official to really join the fight, because it's important to really like, how do I say this? To really have them believe in getting the work done. Again, like basically whatever happens around us affects us. And we really, really, really have to keep pushing people to run for office, especially if they're new, they're fresh, making things fair. Just because I'm not on a town committee or because I'm not part of an established Democrat committee or anything like that doesn't mean that I'm not knowledgeable or I have what it takes. So again, like these kind of things, our lives are really on the line. So we have to really like protect our democracy and, you know, literally fight until we get justice.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, just really powerful comments from all of you. Thank you so much. I'm just very much, so excited to just be here with the three of you today. So moving on to something similar, representation of individuals, and these identities isn't everything. It's great, obviously, to be able to see these new faces and see people run for office, but it's not everything. What I want to ask you is, how do we make sure that it's not only us and our individual identities that are represented in government and in our work, but that our values and beliefs come through? How do we work to make sure that, once we run for office, once we have a seat in our government, once we're working on a campaign, that we're actually making sure that our values and our beliefs are represented? It's a bit of a tough question, but I just wanted to give you a couple of moments to answer. I think, Mia, you kind of seem like you have something to say on that point.
Well, I mean, having like having our values is, wait, how do I say this? Having our values being heard is very, very important, because everyone's ideas are so different, but if we work together, the potential change we can get into. I mean, I'm still processing this question, but like basically I just think that the respect has to be there for sure, in order to really like, agree or disagree on certain things. And then when we get to that position, we have to talk it out so that way we can get somewhere. Because if we don't respect each other's values, how do we move forward? That's what I think, in my opinion, but it's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. I was also interested in hearing from Sarah and Shaban, since you are both working on campaigns, and it's impossible, right, to ever 100% agree with this candidate that you have chosen to volunteer for or to manage their campaign. We'll get into the details, but how do you feel like you can make your mark and push the bar and push the needle a little bit? How do you sort of like stay true to yourself while sort of like working for someone else?
I can jump in for a second. I think that what's resonating with me right now is how much like public discourse matters. And I think now being, sort of working for a congressperson, you realize that every email and every phone call and every protest that happens is like going straight to her, whether it comes through me or someone else. And so it's so important that if they're in DC, that we're listening on the ground to public discourse and giving them every word and every detail, because they don't govern in a bubble. And if they do, push them out. I think that it's so important for me as someone working for someone else to like let her know everything I hear. And then when, she gets a list and like 500 people said the same thing, that changes, how people govern. So, again, inspiring to hear and see what people are talking about now and how much they're pushing for change, and it will affect change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And Shaban, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, like in my work, I try to just, whenever I can, I try to center the Black queer experience, whether that be for a campaign or for something else. And I feel like even just being there, like being a presence, it kind of changes the way that your candidate thinks, because it kind of makes them realize, oh, they're watching me. Like I have queer women on my campaign. They see me, they see what I'm doing. And like, if you have a real connection with that person, I feel like it makes me feel better to know like, oh, they're listening to me and I am their constituent as well as a member of their campaign. And like, we have a direct connection to each other and I can be a representative of my community within this campaign. And I mean, also in supporting people that are already in office, if you're kind of alone in that, I feel like it's very hard to get your values heard. Like if you're the only person pushing for that kind of change within your community. But like Sarah said, I feel like the power of like community and public discourse is so important, especially right now. Like the power of organizing. If you can prove that your community is behind you just through like sheer numbers or sheer like force of the community, like that does so much that it's like, how can I prove that my community is behind me? Oh, well, I can have everybody gather here and say that they're behind me. I can have everybody call and email and write and say that they're behind me. And, you know, it's not like everyone in the community can't be in office, but if everyone in the community is behind a person that is in office, that's why it's so important to know who your community representatives are and to have them know who you are so that you can actually be in contact with them and so that you can actually support them if you agree with their values, and then you can hold them accountable if maybe you don't agree with their values but you voted for them as their constituent. Your responsibility is to hold them accountable. So I think that the power of organizing, maybe some people overlook that because they feel like once they get their candidate in office they can just kind of leave it alone. But if you don't continue to show up for that person and continue to show up for those values that you hold or that you share with that person, then it's very hard for them to really get anything done. I know that Senator I can't remember his name, Gary Winfield. Yeah, one of the things he said at a protest, I think it was last Sunday, was like, I need you to be angry. Like, I need you to keep protesting because if you stop, then how am I supposed to get anything through? How am I supposed to prove that you guys want police accountability if everyone's just sitting at home? Like, I need you to keep being angry. So yeah, to get people's values through, even if you're not in office, you have to continue to support through organization and protesting and writing letters, emailing, calling, and doing whatever it is that proves that you share those values and that you also want to see change.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the big theme here that we've tapped into is it's a team effort. And, you know, we need, you know, everyone watching, all of you, everyone all the time to kind of be, you know, see themselves as agents of local change. And, you know, you don't just have to run for office, although it's amazing when you do, but to, you know, get involved and go out and protest and to demonstrate your anger and to be vocal. And I really appreciate those points there. On that kind of note, you know, womanhood and queer womanhood aren't really universal identities by any means. Everyone's experience is different and unique and special, but we've got to build each other up. And with that in mind, I wanted to ask you, what is something you want other women, especially younger queer women, to know? What do you want them to take away from this and from today? I'll begin with Mia.
Yeah, the message I just want to bring out, and I hope that this message finds people well, that don't give up your faith or hope or anything. Like, again, if you're angry, like, continue the fight and make a difference, because, you know, like I said in the previous question, that our lives are put on the line, and like when there's a certain bill that passes, it affects us all. And so whether if it's just like raising a child or trying to get a better job, you know, really put that in consideration. Like, if you don't like that, then definitely just find a way to change and fight until certain things get into a better position. So basically, it's just don't give up the fight. Just keep going. Keep going. Let, you know, walk the runway and everything. Just be as fierce as you can.
Absolutely. All right, Siobhan?
I would just say, like Mia said, don't give up the fight, but also for young queer women to remember there's like thousands of different ways to fight. You know, you can run for office, you can support a candidate, you can be an artist, you can be a musician, you can be a mother, a friend, there's all different ways to like continue this fight. You know, you can fight the power, you can be the power, you can do whatever is in your lane. Like, people feel, or especially women and queer women sometimes maybe feel left out of politics, or they feel afraid to approach politics because it doesn't seem like it's a place that was built for them. But if you look to it in a different light, if you say like, oh, well, I can create my own space here through my art or through my music or through my relationships, and I can bring those into a space that affects politics. Like just find yourself a role in it, whatever that role is going to be. And even if you aren't necessarily interested in being directly affiliated with politics, because it is difficult, like Mia was saying, like you get hate, you get hateful comments, and it's discouraging and it's hard, and it's a lot of people for their mental health, it's just not a feasible thing to do. Even if you don't want to put yourself into those situations, I feel like we can all affect change if we just continue to bring our queerness and our womanhood everywhere that we go, into every conversation that we have, and every like different interaction that we have in our communities. We can continue to make change by being visible and by lifting each other up and lifting each other's voices up and creating space for each other's voices. So again, like there's no one way to do it. No matter what it is that you're good at or that you love doing, you can always find a way to use that to make change.
Absolutely. Awesome. And Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, don't give up the fight. Absolutely. I think that sometimes it's discouraging. Things feel like they're not changing, or they're changing so incrementally and so slowly that that it's easy to just say, well, this isn't working. But like I think about issues that were fringe issues like 20 years ago, like when Congress people talked about building the economy, they just talked about infrastructure, right? And now, you understand that like building the economy has to do with social services like childcare and pay equity and paid family medical leave and Medicare. And so it took 20 years and we haven't passed them yet, right? But I think that not giving up and understanding that you're building a movement is really important, and it really works.
Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna use these last 10 minutes precisely for some open Q&A. So if anyone watching wants to drop their comments and questions, but I also wanted to give our panelists the floor as we take those in to ask each other some questions. If there's a question that give you a moment to think, but if there's a question that you've wanted to ask your other panelists, or two questions, one for each, I don't know, to talk to each other. What's on your mind? What have you been thinking about during this? And thank you so much to our audience for positive feedback. Yeah, for cheering folks on. Don't be shy. You've got a good thinking face. Just sorry, I don't mean to call you out.
I'm thinking hard.
Well, my question for Sarah, because I've heard that you're a campaign manager. So since I attempt to run for state rep and stuff, like what is the best advice can you give for like any potential political candidates in the future if you're going to run for office? What is the appropriate way to run a successful campaign, whether you win or not?
It's going to sound really corny, but listening. I think like it all starts with listening to your constituents, because if they like understand that you hear them, they want to get behind you, right? Because I think people feel, especially when you're talking about who you're running against, they don't feel like they're seen or heard in any way, and then they give up, and then they meet someone like you, right? And that's what AOC did. She door knocked a district that nobody had door knocked in 20 years because they just like decided that nobody was paying attention to them, and she went around and just listened to people, and she won by incredible numbers. So I think you're already doing that, and just like letting people know who you are and letting people know that you hear them is the most powerful thing you can do. And also I want to help you, so let me know how I can. Unfortunately,
yes, I think you came away with 3 new volunteers for your campaign.
I mean, I'm excited. I'm thinking of maybe doing state rep, if not Harvard City Council. So for sure, I will appreciate all the help and support that I can get, because I just know that for young folks and even for all people, like there is a a potential hope that, you know, we can make some real change and get the work done, because I'm ready to get my hands dirty. So I just gotta learn, how do you win? You know, so
well, yeah, one question I have for you is like, what policy are you most excited about changing once you get into office?
Oh, me? Oh,
yeah.
Well, police accountability, education, affordable housing, and there was one thing about LGBTQ awareness and acceptance. Even though it's more accepting now, but I really want to protect young trans and trans girls, trans boys, gay, bisexual kids in school, because they're constantly getting bullied and they don't know who to go to. Because if a teacher says, "Hey, I had a discussion about a certain topic which dealt with LGBTQ," that child may not feel safe to tell that teacher, because the teacher can go back to the parent. And then that creates problems in the household. So I want to make sure my children are protected in schools, even in high schools, because high school is the number one destination of, and I hate to bring up the topic of suicidal thoughts, when, you know, kids at that age don't feel accepted by their own community and the high school, you know, experience. So yeah, definitely I'm passionate about affordable housing. I'm so sick and tired of gentrification here happening in Frog Hollow, that they care about the fancy bougie apartments versus the apartment that I live in is not so bad, but still it's like, you know, that my grandmother pays $850 a month when she's a 64-year-old woman working third shift, trying to make, you know, her rent out the way and paying her bills on time. So it's just like, can we make an idea to bring down those rent prices for elderly people that are trying to survive, instead of like busting their ass for a third shift when she should be retiring and relaxing? Education, I know I can go on. Like education, I just feel like there should be more access to great things like tablets, books, you know, making education fun again, because I feel like kids are like bored. Like, how can you tell a student, take a book, go to page 48 and find the definition and trying to pair, like, not all kids have the, you know, strategy of like using a textbook. You know, how can we like creatively make education fun? And yeah, all those kind of things. Police accountability, definitely, because I like to call people out. So there's some fancy stuff happening in Hartford with the recent chief police, but I won't get into that. But yeah, those are the policies I would focus on if I am elected to office one day.
Amazing.
And I had a quick question for Soban. I've read that it takes 7 people to ask a woman to run for office, even though men tend to run for office with nobody asking. So I wanted to ask you if you'll run for office.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. I've never heard that. You know what?
That's true.
I would love to run for office. I just do not know what's going to happen in my life in the next few years. But like, I don't know where I'm going to end up. But if I end up going to college in Connecticut, I feel like I will. I feel like I will run for office.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know which one, but one of them.
Run for office. Yes. My is commenting, please run for office, which is aimed towards you. And Anna Maria wanted to know, let Mia know that you're an inspiration. Just pulling that from the comments, which you are. And Soban, I think you can also take myself and Mia as your second and third ask, depending on whether Sarah is number 1. So you only have 4 more to go.
All right.
You got it. Statistically speaking. So amazing conversation with you all. We only have about 3 minutes left. Get those questions in. I think most people are just commenting with their good feelings, telling you all to run. Yes, run for office, run for office, run for office. And keep going. So thank you all for participating and for love and encouragement and support from all of amazing audience members. If you have any final questions, now is your time. But awesome. All right, thank you so much for participating. Is there anything left on your minds that you're dying to get out before we end this live stream? You're good. Right. Awesome. So, again, thank you both so much, Sarah, Siobhan, Mia. It was a absolute pleasure having you. The conversation was really interesting, and I appreciate it so much. Right? Take care. As we end, I'm Miranda. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I'm the LGBTQ Women's Program Officer at the New Haven Pride Center. If you want to get in touch with me or with any of our panelists, I am more than happy to make that connection. Email me. It's on the screen, women@newhavenpridecenter.org. Super happy to get in touch with all of you. And if you are a queer woman interested in running for office, let us know. If you are a queer woman involved in politics in any way, and you want to speak on one of these panels and help get to inspire and network with other queer women, please, please, please email me and let me know. We're always happy to hear from you and to support you in any way that we can. Thank you so much. Before we end, I just have to do some housekeeping of making a statement of any views expressed about political candidates are strictly my own and those of the panelists. The New Haven Pride Center cannot endorse any particular candidate running for office in particular. Although we support all queer women and LGBTQ folks as they pursue political careers. And we're so happy to have you all join us today for this really fabulous discussion. And just thank you so much to our audience for your love and enthusiasm that you've shown to these women. And thank you. All right, have a good one.